Hello and welcome to the Jann Arden podcast. I'm Caitlin Green, here with Sarah Burke, both of us in our Toronto homes.
Abodes, if you really want to go by the host.
I'm trying to keep this in the tone of Jann Arden as much as possible because she desperately wishes to be with us today, but you're getting a kids' table version of the podcast for the holidays because Jann, like everybody, myself included, is sick. Man, she is so sick. Holy.
Yeah, and like Jann, just for the record, does not cancel anything. Like her canceling what was supposed to be our holiday episode with our Patreon only Jans this week. We've postponed, actually, I should say. Yeah. We are going to do it in the new year. But like this was something that this person just would never do unless it was a bad situation. So
my goodness, no. Yeah. She is a workhorse. But I will tell you, as someone whose husband has been officially diagnosed with pneumonia following chest x-rays.
Oh no.
And I know, and Will definitely has it. I started on puffers when I began getting sick, so I feel like my symptoms came in less, but I probably have it too. And our entire household has been sick in some way or another since Halloween. And only now are we getting antibiotics and puffers and oral steroids. Like, we're going for it. So I really feel Jann's pain. And every time I tell anyone that we have pneumonia, they immediately respond with their own tales of pneumonia, family members who have it, walking pneumonia that's going around. So
is it walking pneumonia what you guys have?
Yeah, so I think that, well, no, Kyle's is flat out pneumonia. That my doctor thinks I probably have walking pneumonia, which is such a horribly titled virus because you don't want to walk. Like, it's like,
what's the difference of the two? I don't know.
I think it's shelf life. I think that it's like, I think with walking pneumonia, you have it for a long time and you're like up and around, you're not in bed. I don't think the fever is as bad. Like Kyle and Will got hit with crazy fevers. So it seems like they take it almost less seriously when they call it walking pneumonia, because it's like, you can still walk. But right. It's very the season, and it's what happens every Christmas. It's like, it's a disgusting time of year. Let's be honest.
Yeah. You know me, and like October was like a write-off for me. The entire month, I was just a mess. And I feel like I've teetered on the edge of that again over the last few weeks. Like I definitely need to get my sleep in check or I am not going to survive.
So, well, around the postponement of our big, party that we were going to do for the podcast, I've been texting with Jann, just trying to, make her feel better. But I told her, I said, my husband and I are going for an IV vitamin drip tomorrow. We have one scheduled at a naturopath's office because we need an immune boost. And when we told her that we were interested in coming in, she said every single person, like all of her patients, are all rushing to try to get in because everyone has been battling some form of a chest infection for weeks. So yeah, if you're listening to us now, you may very well be able to relate to the feeling of you've been sick forever and are tired of it and have to cancel stuff. And so that's what's happened. But we didn't want to let you down. Sarah and I were like, we still have to pop on and say some holiday related things.
Yeah. And you know what? This is our last episode of the year. So we have a little plan. We are going to look back at our favorite guests of 2024, replay some of the conversations so we can bring Jann's voice back in to the session. And yeah, we've got some Patreon plans for a little later, what we're going to cover on Patreon. But I will start by asking you, if you don't mind, Caitlin, about your year. I want a high and a low.
Ooh.
Biggest high, biggest low.
They can almost be one and the same, which was, you know what I'm going to say.
I do.
Which was being part of the Red Wedding Bell Media layoffs on February 8th. So it was bizarre. It's like the epitome of, a door closes, a window opens, and it causes you to reevaluate your professional life and the role that your career plays in it and the parts of it that are healthy and perhaps were unhealthy, and feeling creatively fulfilled, and then getting to focus more time on looking ahead, I guess, in a way that you don't get to do when you're just trying to get through the week. Because I was waking up at 4:30 in the morning. I was really dedicated to that job. And so it took up all that space for me. And I could never sit down and go, do I like this? Where am I going? What am I doing? So, and also sleeping. I got to sleep in past 4:30 for a whole year pretty well. So they're together. Those
safe to say that the complicated feelings of getting laid off were very quickly replaced with like feelings of freedom.
Freedom and like knowing that it's, I guess, your biggest fear when you're at a company like that, where you
Yeah.
know that seasonal layoffs are a thing. I mean, come November and February at that company, you are concerned about your job.
Mhm.
And so for this scary thing to happen to you and you just kind of are
Yeah.
fine,
Yeah.
you it's a relief. It's a
Yeah.
relief, and it's a reframing of your job, and in a relaxing way to realize like you are kind of just an employee ID to them, which is fine, which can be kind of like a good thing. You don't have to tie up your whole identity in it. So I liked it, and I'm like I'm down for the weird challenges of life. I'll just talk about it with my therapist and on
Yeah.
this podcast, which is also my therapist. So it was fine. It's weird though. Like it is weird. It's discombobulating.
Yeah.
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 And you?
Is it weird that I also want to say starting the network, the high and the low?
See?
Yeah. I mean it's been so rewarding. There are so many rewarding moments. And, I thought I was going to launch with 3 podcasts.
Mhm.
Jan was not included in that 3. Like the way that it happened, launching with 8 podcasts, including friggin' Jan Arden, was insanity.
Mhm.
But like so many lessons over the last year. Like I should probably be writing a book. I'll figure that out. But like
Don't add to your list.
I know that's another thing. I just say yes to a lot of things because I'm always curious about like where a path takes you, right? So I don't like saying no to something. I like saying yes, and then if it's a no later,
Mhm.
then removing it. But yeah, at the same time, entrepreneurship, like not working for a company or a collective. I mean, I do intend to hire
Mhm.
in the next year. But I just had a couple of freelance producers this year, and the times that we were together were really great. But like overall, it's very isolating entrepreneur life,
Mhm.
and every time you think like you're getting somewhere with something like whether it's a sales deck or, a client and just content, then it like all falls apart the next day. So many ups and downs, but equally rewarding and challenging, I would say.
That's an interesting point about it being isolating, because that I
Yeah.
bet that that's what it's like, because you're used to, in a larger working environment, there is a sense of camaraderie when there is a success or a failure, and now you're like, wait, why didn't this go through? Why didn't this pan out? And
Yeah.
you're just talking about it with Stevie.
Yeah.
Yeah, like,
Exactly. I mean, we're recording this in a digital studio, and I do that with all my clients. So don't get me wrong, like I still get to socialize in that way. It's just really not the same, and there's no like
mhm.
collective goals. Like even the moments when me, you, and Jan will have our like, hey, this is what we want to do next year. Like those moments are just way more spread out
Yes.
and further removed. So
Yeah. Yeah, I find that too,
yeah.
because I'm doing stuff predominantly virtually as well. And
Yeah.
it is unusual when you don't have that FaceTime. And it does, I think the
Yeah.
pandemic made everyone appreciate the fact that we are very social little primates as
Yeah.
humans.
Yeah.
And we're used to working in groups and working within like some form of a social hierarchy. And that's what
Yeah.
you're a bit hardwired to do.
Yeah.
So this is strange. It's definitely strange. And the times that I've gone into meetings at bigger companies, it's in a weird way, it's felt good, but I will say that I noticed how different I felt about it. Having been kind of out on your own for a
Yeah.
while, you go back into the warm embrace, but also like the suffocating pressure of like a
Yeah.
giant building. And you're like, wait, this is really nice. And I like all the perks, and like maybe they have free cereal or lunch or whatever the case may be. But you're very aware of the fact that it's an expectation that you are on someone else's schedule all the time. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Totally.
that's something cool about being an entrepreneur or a freelancer. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's like it's isolating.
Stevie does deserve a shout out though. She has changed my life.
Aw.
She's only been with me, right, for 2 months, and I can already tell it was like the best decision I made this year. She is I feel like you understand when you look at your child, you're just like everything is fine because your
Yes.
little face is so cute.
Yeah, and they don't they want you to
Yeah.
be happy, and can certainly sense when you're stressed, and they'll
Yeah.
respond in their ways. Will knows when I'm unhappy right away, runs over, knows what's going on. But they don't care about the same things that
Yeah.
everyone else in society cares about. They don't measure you with that same yardstick that everyone else will.
Yeah.
It's much more personal, and it's so nice to have that innocent, fun thing that's
They
always
remind you to
excited.
be in the moment.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, 100%. With a dog or a kid, you cannot leave the moment. You very much
Yeah.
have to be there, whether you want to or not at that time.
And they're only concerned with like, what's the next treat or what's the next snack or,
When are
so
we reading another book? I would like that
yeah.
to be now. Yeah.
And she is teaching me a lot about myself as well. So
Ooh.
I can't wait to get like further into this journey with raising a dog. Is that what we say? Anyway, yeah,
Yeah.
it's been amazing. So my next question for you is, what was your favorite episode of the Jan Arden podcast for 2024? Favorite
Oh,
guest,
this
favorite. Actually, do this. Let's pick a favorite guest and a favorite conversation, because I'm sure, I mean, Jan makes us laugh so hard that we pee our pants all the time. So
Yeah. In a perpetual state of my face hurting.
yeah.
I obviously adored talking to Chelsea Handler.
It's
I
I'm
mean,
I'm just gonna say it's my top pick too. I mean, how the heck did we score Chelsea Well, we know Jan Arden.
yeah.
They were DMing. They had seen each other at a backstage at a show, if I remember correctly.
Mhm.
And she responded to the invite to come on.
That really rarely happens in the world, especially of Canadian media and
Yes.
podcasting, that you get a yes from someone like that and that they super deliver on that conversation with you. She was real, she was funny, she'll talk about anything. She was very gracious with her time. And it was cool that when we recorded with her, she was actually in BC
In
and that
Canada,
she,
yeah.
yeah, so that type of that all those things rolled together made for a
She's there right
really.
now.
Is she back there?
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure she's got, I don't know if it's a timeshare or a place she owns, but
Yeah.
she's got something in Whistler.
Has she been downhill skiing in a bikini with her dog on her back?
One can only hope.
That was one of my favorite social videos she's ever done. What I really took from her was how important it is to have confidence in yourself,
Yeah.
because she really has it. And
Yeah.
I many times really don't. And so I was like, she will go full steam ahead because she's really
Yeah.
confident in where she's headed and what this will mean for her. And I think she'd seem to kind of define failure, at certain things as its
Yeah.
own success, because you're never going to get somewhere without falling on your ass many times. So I liked that part of it. And I need that kind of messaging.
Yeah, and I couldn't have said it better myself. Let's throw to a clip from the Chelsea Handler
and
episode.
you were indeed skiing in Whistler with your dog in a backpack. You did have a cocktail, and how does it feel? You're on the dark side of 50.
I am no, I'm not. Well, I'm on the dark side of it or the light side of it. I'm 49. Is that the dark side of 50?
Yes, that's the dark side of 50.
Fuck. Okay,
That's what they
so
call
yes,
it in
I'm on
Canada.
the dark. Oh, I didn't know. There's so many sayings in Canada that I haven't really caught on to. I'm so busy smoking joints and drinking cocktails and getting my dogs high that I can't even focus on the lexicon that you guys are using up here. It feels good to be 49. I mean, 50 is a big number. I'm not going to lie. It
No.
does. You're like, wait, what? I remember my dad being 50 and being like, get out of my way. You're old. I don't want to, don't associate with me. So, yeah, I am 50. But you know what? I mean, my life just is, I'm happy. I'm so happy. I'm so happy that I am not married and that I don't have some husband that annoys the living shit out of me. I'm happy that I get to have sex with random men in different countries and I don't feel any obligation towards them. I'm happy that I don't have any children of my own, even though I do have a lot of children in my life.
You do.
I do. I actually do, more than necessary. But I'm happy about that too. It's like I get to live all out. I get to live the best of all the worlds, right?
Do you feel like you have to apologize for being happy sometimes? I mean, I
No.
think a lot of times people that are happy, it's just like, oh, well, good for you. I'm so glad you're happy.
I think we need to talk about happiness a little bit more and unadulterated joy a little bit more and actually finding out in life, especially for women, about what makes you happy and finding your passions and finding your joy and getting after it, because not everybody has the luxury or feels like they have the luxury to do so. And you do. You have every right to create your own joy and find out what brings it up in you, because when you are joyful, you spread it and you're giving it away to other people. And right there, that alone can never be selfish. So anyone who thinks living a life like mine being selfish, it's like, I get to spread this joy with so many people. So there's nothing selfish about that.
I don't even know how you find the time to do all the shit that you do, but writing comedy, putting a routine together like that, just for people that don't have a clue, where does that even start? So you're out on the little bitch Big Little Bitch tour. And where does the catalyst from that come from? It's a lot about your childhood. I'm not, no spoiler alerts, but how do you put that together? Where does it start?
I always just take the funny stories that happen, and with I'm writing a new book, I'm doing my stand up. There's a lot of overlap with those two things. So a lot of like the stories I told about going to Kennebunkport to George W. Bush's compound, like that's a true story. I was on 3 edibles and had to go deal with a former president who I have no political amiability with. Like we have nothing in common, and I had to drug myself to go there. And the story
As
of
you
me
would.
having to of course, and having to look at his artwork while I was on 3 edibles, with him to asking me to take my sunglasses off, and me having to tell him, "Sir, Mr. President, I'm as high as a kite right now," and that's what I had to do to get here. Those stories in my life, like my brothers and sisters were on that trip with me to Maine, and those stories in my life are always, that is my life. It's pure ridiculousness. The situations I find myself in are just crazy. Like my brother is like, listen, he goes, every time we go away with Chelsea, some shit like this happens. And I take pride in that. Like I take pride in providing that kind of entertainment, never being narrow-minded enough to not experience something that you think you won't like, always being open-minded. And then, my personality leads to a lot of embarrassing situations. And I like to take the piss out of myself. It's fun to self-deprecate and be self-deprecating. And a lot of the stories in this show, like the Andrew Cuomo story, the Bill Cosby story, the Woody Allen story, they're all true. So why not share them? You know what I mean? Like everyone wants to know about that kind of stuff. And those people I don't have a ton of respect for. So I have no problem, throwing them under the bus. So yeah, I like to share all of it because not everybody gets to experience all these things. And I think the reason why anyone is a fan of mine is because they know that I tell the truth. I'm not lying about stuff. I don't make things up. I don't try to make myself look good. I just am living.
Do you think that the way you were raised, because you did talk about your family a lot, and you have talked a lot about your family over the years, do you think your parents and your siblings and the way you guys interacted and the way your parents were with you, that it kind of informed not only your personal life, Chelsea, but your professional life, like those beginnings of planting a seed, of you talked about wanting to have some money in your life to not be held prisoner by other people's expectations. So that seed was planted early. Your parents have obviously played a big part in that, whether
Well,
it's
they
good or
played a
bad.
big part in not in neglecting me. So that was a big
That's
part.
good.
And it's not even really, I mean, it is their fault because they should have probably used protection, but they had so many children and they were so tired and they were so inefficient at parenting. Incompetent would kind of be the right word, that I stepped in and parented myself, and my brothers and sisters had a big role in parenting me. And there was no loss of love in our family, but there was a loss of like, reliability, dependability, getting picked up on time from school, or my mom getting in touch with the other kids' moms' friends. My mom's like, I don't want to deal with those people. Like, I'd rather you didn't go to that party. I'm like, no, I need to go to that party. You need to act like a mother and like, step it up. Like my parents were never on the level with the other parents, and that bothered me a great deal. And then the dynamic between my mom and my dad was very obviously in his favor. And I knew from a very young age that I did not ever want to be reliant on another person, whether it be a man or a woman. Like I was going to make my own way. I was going to have a luxurious life. I was going to have the most fun, and I was going to make a lot of money. And so I wanted to do that. And I wanted independence. Like when I was a baby, I was so pissed at being trapped in that body. Like I just wanted to be a woman. I was like, what are these arms and legs? Like, I want my boobs. I wanted my own apartment when I was 7. Like I asked if I could get my own place because I just wanted to separate from them. I felt like they were holding me back. So now when my brothers and sisters and I, who are all very close, look back or talk about it, it's like now they know that I did know what I was. They just thought I was like this crazy. I was like, no, I told you guys from the very beginning, this is what it was going to be, and to follow my lead. If you want to live the good life, come with me and I will show you the way. And my brothers and sisters, some of them were like 15 years older than me. And they're like, oh my God, who is this like little, this little lunatic? And, but now they realize that I knew what it was up all along. And, now they listen to me a lot better.
She's got a book coming out in 2025. So I'm calling it for our book club. Just saying.
This will be one of your book club reads, because that's
Has
another
to
thing.
be.
That's another thing that everyone should know, is that we are planning on launching a book club, a Jann Arden Pod book club for 2025, because all of us are avid readers and Jann is a writer. So we're like, how have we missed the mark on this? And it feels like so many listeners love reading as well, and I think they would really engage with this. So I'm thrilled, and I cannot wait to discuss books and to force you guys to read the books that I will pick, and then for you guys to force me to read the books that you will pick.
I think that's going to be so cool too, because like I'm not really a fiction reader. I used to be. When I was a kid, I was obsessed. But I'm looking forward to kind of like playing around between different genres and formats of books.
Yeah,
so.
And talking to authors, like I really do. Yeah. I really want that.
So for our next look back, a conversation with Jann that brought you to laughing tears.
Okay. And this was one that we've already discussed as being one of our favorites as well. And it was so good. A rare moment where I actually took out a pen and paper and started making notes as we were talking. But it was when, yeah, I had to, because I was like, this is good. And I need to be able to repeat this with some, intensity. Yeah. And she outlines her dream bachelorette party. And it was one of the most perfect bachelorette experiences I could ever imagine taking.
There'd be 8 people.
Okay.
That's it.
Max
so
8
small.
people. Mm-hmm.
There would be a motorhome, a really nice, big, long motorhome. Okay. I would be driving. So something posh, something that easily sleeps 8. Okay. We are stocked with snacks and a blender for like icy margarita drinks. I won't drink, which is why I'm driving, but you guys can do whatever. Mm-hmm. There's going to be a whole bunch of card games.
Virgin drinks.
We're gonna stop at campsites. It's gonna be a 3-night extravaganza. Okay. We're gonna drive in the summertime through the Rocky Mountains. We're gonna stop. We're gonna make reservations at campgrounds. Fire bans permitting. We're gonna have nice campfires. We're gonna sit around. I'm gonna bring a guitar or whatever.
Club soda.
We're gonna tell stories. We're gonna make s'mores and marshmallows and vegan marshmallows and vegan wiener hot dogs. And we're just gonna sit. We're gonna talk. And we're gonna play a bunch of games where we tie like a ball in a nylon between our legs and like knock over plastic Solo cups.
Love this.
We are going to wash our hair in like the river, and then. For the final night, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go to a Value Village or a thrift store. We're going to pick out, you got to draw a name out of a hat, and we got to find an outfit for each person.
That's my favorite part of the whole trip so far.
Now we've got our outfits, and now we're going to go to like a pretty nice restaurant. We're going to park this freaking thing somewhere. Mm-hmm. The last night on a Saturday night, Sunday night, we're going to go
8 girls come
really
out
nice
of a motorhome.
I'm obsessed.
We're going to come out of our motorhome. We're not going to be wearing penises or anything of the freaking sort. We're going to have a little makeup on, and we're going to go have a nice meal.
It's the dream.
That sounds great.
The fact that Jann just brought this up like off the top of her head, like that's art.
I thought about it.
You know, that bachelorette conversation ended up being the inspiration for our first live show that we did for the podcast, because I was like, how can we make this interactive with the audience? Maybe we bring in some bachelorette games.
This was when you came up with the testicle toss game.
Well, I can't take credit. I mean, women have been doing it for years at bachelorette
I'd never
parties.
heard of this.
Really?
Never in a million years.
Okay, so I mean, I'll bring in a visual here if you're watching on YouTube of Danny Kind was our special guest, and we had Jann on stage, and I think we had a listener participating in this part too.
We did.
But essentially you put like a ball, like you can use a tennis ball or any kind of ball really, in a pantyhose, and you have like a red Solo cup, and the object of the game is to try and knock it over. And of course, bachelorettes have fun with pinning the penis on the whatever and, all sorts of ball comedy. So that's kind of where it came from.
I had never seen this happen in real life, because you have, grown women on stage with a flesh-colored pantyhose tied around their waist and a giant heavy dangler between their legs trying to knock over a Solo cup.
We're taking the male testicle out of this game. We're going to swap in labia.
We've seen enough.
Oh, my goodness.
We've seen enough.
Okay. Do you want me to tie you up? You want me to tie you up? Okay, so the idea here. Yeah. Just going to tie it around your waist. This is going to try and knock over. The first person to knock over the, we're doing social media live right now. Literally everything. So you're going to be swinging like this. Like this. Okay?
I know how
Jenny never thought she'd meet Jan Arden in this capacity. Okay, on your marks, get set, go. Okay, 1 down, 2. Jenny won. Jenny won. Thank you for coming to Jan's Bachelorette, Jenny. How do you feel?
I feel great. I want to go to her house, though.
So I hadn't seen this, and then I realized from a few people who listen and were in the audience, and they all started DMing me or saying to me in person, "Oh my gosh, we do this with my family at every Christmas."
What? How is that a Christmas game?
I don't know, but
oh my god! You
to
know,
each their own.
I think we'll agree on one of the funniest moments of that show was like just nonchalant when Jan starts talking about her Crocs.
Poppy's so great.
Yeah.
I mean, he keeps me from getting blood clots because let me explain.
Please.
You know, I write a lot. Like I'm working on my second book and I try and, work from 5:30 till like 9:30. I do have a cap on it. Like that's good. But he's just like, he's got to get out the door. So I can work for 20 minutes and then he's just barking, and the barking so much that I let him out into the pitch black now. It's like dark out and I have to stand there to make sure he doesn't get eaten by something.
You're wearing the Crocs and you're wearing the shorts and you're standing like this. I can picture it perfectly.
You've been at my house, that's why. And those Crocs were a gift from a movie set. And why should I waste those?
No, you crock it up.
Sometimes I put them on speed mode, which is the strap up on the back of your heel.
So if you've ever said.
I've never heard that before. I'm totally stealing it.
If you want a fucking boogie, you grab that, you lock it and load it over your Achilles heel and you go.
That event was so much fun. It was a great proof of concept because when we started talking about it, we really didn't know that it was going to be kind of the runaway success that it was. And it sold out instantly. And again, I still get messages from people saying that they were so sad they couldn't get tickets.
I know.
And we are going to be doing live events in 2025. So again, on our mood board for the year, we have a book club and we definitely have more live events. I don't know what sort of bachelorette themed games we may come up with. It might involve
we might have to go with a
testicles.
new theme. Maybe it's like under the sea. Maybe it's I don't know. Jan what did she do? She voiced a sperm whale thing with National Geographic this year.
Yes, Jan partnered with National Geographic and she narrated one of their underwater movies, and it's quite emotional because it follows some of the well, she was talking about it, about how they talk about whales and the life cycle of whales and like when whales lose a calf and like the more like grief amongst whales. I didn't even know this was a thing. And then of course
of the Whales, a film in concert.
there you go. Yeah. So Jan narrated it. And she said that there was at one point a group of school children who would come because that's a great field trip. But as expected, when she got to the sperm whale portion of the show, there were many little voices and tee-hees happening that she could hear.
I've been doing a show for National Geographic narrating the secrets of the whales with a live symphony orchestra. So I had 2 shows yesterday, sort of like Broadway. You do an afternoon show. This one, however, was in the morning for 1,700 children.
I love
that
this.
were probably from 5 to 9 years old. I've never seen more squirmy kids in my life. There was lots of chaperones. There was lots of kids trailing off to the bathroom with their teachers' aides and their teachers. It was a nonstop cavalcade of commentary. I was worried because at one point there's sperm whales, and I have to say sperm whales, and it's like saying fart in front of children. If you say something that triggers a child. So when I said sperm whales, there was giant giggles. And then of course I'm like, oh my God, as I'm doing this narration, I'm like, oh no, there's a scene coming up here. It's about mating. It's pretty benign. It's nothing verbally descriptive, but the sperm whale is, this new guy on the block and he's trying to show off for the ladies and his penis is out and it's giant. And I'm thinking, God, maybe they won't notice the penis. Maybe they won't
Absolutely
notice the
not.
penis. The front 3 rows, I can hear their comments. These kids are like, look at his penis. Oh my God, it's huge.
Oh my God, she's hilarious.
Yeah.
Okay, so Another guest that stands out to me, I had not heard of this person until you mentioned them, but I was so happy we got to have her on the show.
Yeah, Kate C. Bowler, who is an author. She's originally from Canada, but she's an author. She's a podcaster. She is a fantastic writer, and her personal story of resilience following some devastating health issues that she has long suffered with, and how those made her confront her own morality. And she's a very religious person, and her faith, and kind of wanting to do away with the whole everything happens for a reason mentality that we assign to
Yeah.
awful things, and just saying, well, actually just everything happens. And I loved our conversation with her. It was very, very dream come true for me to have her on the show.
How are you at asking for help, Kate?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean,
That's terrible for me. That's
it's-
I will sit alone for 3 days. I'm getting better. I mean, 62 years old. I'm finally, my mother's Alzheimer's. I always say good things come out of bad things. My mother's Alzheimer's actually shifted my ability to reach out to my friends and ask for help. And people always said that to me. You never need anything. Like, are you okay out there? And I'm like, I'm not really okay. So how are you good
Yeah.
at it?
Oh yeah. I'm terrible. I'm a huge
Okay.
liar. Yeah. Especially like, how are you? Fine. I'm wondering like Jann, can you remember the time in which like was it a breaking moment, or was it you just realized you were the only one that was
I
going to
was
have to break
scared.
the momentum? Aw.
I was very scared. And I think everyone assumes that memory loss is never going to affect them. My parents seemed like these steadfast,
Yeah.
steady on people. And they both kind of got sick at the same time. But when people are together, you don't notice it as much. And when my father died, cat was out of the bag. The cat with no memory. Imagine having a cat running around that has no idea what it's doing, what it's looking for. Was I hungry? You know, you could feed my mom and she'd say, I'm hungry. And I'm like, oh my God. But I'd always feed her again because she was only like 106 pounds. But I was scared, Kate. Long-winded answer. And I felt like I was making myself sick.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think I could hide mine for such a long time because I used to travel by myself for medical appointments, and then I just really got used to doing medical appointments alone because I would spend so much time worrying about how other people received it, or frankly, if they say the wrong thing, it's kind of better to be in a room by yourself. And so I just found that my coping strategies were making me like lonelier, sadder, more convinced that I was the only person in pain, which is a lie, but it feels true when you're the one going through something.
Thank you for giving me this intro into your latest book, because you are also a gifted writer. I mean, when I think about Caitlin's experience and how the words that you put down on a page and the words that you said on a podcast shifted the most horrible, terrifying, terrible moment in Caitlin and her husband's life and in her family's life. I mean, so kudos to you for being able to use your own sadness, your own failings, that's where empathy comes from. You have to know what that feels like in order to share it with other people. But tell me about Have a Beautiful, Terrible Day, daily meditations for ups and downs and the in-betweens. And what prompted you to sit at a keyboard and start this book?
Oh, I'm just a one-woman mission to ruin small talk mostly. And I just couldn't think of, I always just want more and more language to not sort of immediately step into that like performed cheerfulness that's really expected of women, and in particular. And last year I was going through this. I just got stuck in a pain loop because of chronic pain I'd gotten from too many kind of cancer related surgeries. And so long after I wasn't battling cancer, I just found that I had so much chronic pain, and I was so overwhelmed because I thought like, well, haven't I survived this already? Like, can't I be in the magical, where is mountaintop yoga available to me personally?
With goats.
So, exactly. You give me that smoothie bar, you give me a cat poster, and I want to be on it. And I felt that same like loop of despair, that like my days were getting too short because I couldn't manage my pain. It was probably going to be a terrible day. So I remembered something I'd really learned when I was having to live in between like treatments that really only guaranteed me 2 or 3 more months of life at a time. And I thought,
Jesus.
actually it's a lot easier if you narrow your horizon a bit, and then you just ask yourself, like, well, if it can't even be a fantastic day, could it just be a beautiful, terrible day? And how to so I only had about an hour of brain space in a day because I was just not well enough. So within an hour, I would write these reflections on how to try to live inside the days I have.
That book, if you're looking for a book to cozy up with, is called Everything Happens for a Reason and Other Lies I've Loved. And you can go back and revisit the episode. That's kind of one of the great things about podcasting. Like you can just like go for a binge listen anytime and go back in time if you missed episodes. It drives me insane to think about how many episodes you two have done together before I even came into the picture. Like this is,
I know.
you're coming up on 5 years.
It's crazy how many shows and also how many hours I realize I've spent talking to Jann. And with our most recent guest, John Batt from the Canada.gov Instagram account, when he and I were sort of prepping for the conversation, he was talking to me about Jann and trying to gauge sort of what she's like. He was looking to me to say at one point, do you think like you can speak on her behalf or like you're kind of an expert? And I was like, yeah, I mean, I guess I am. I've talked to her for probably over 300 hours, like more. Like that's just in a way that I can measure because of the podcast, let alone like personally talking to her. So it's a lot of time together and a lot of time together with our listeners.
And this again goes to prove the theory that Jann rarely misses any type of anything, whether it's podcast or show. Like she is always there and she doesn't want to take a break usually.
Never.
Even us deciding to take the last week of December off, you and I basically lovingly peer pressured her to take a break.
Yeah, because you know that people you get a little crispy this time of year. You get a little burnt out and that starts to happen. And then you get sick or your brain falls out of your head and it's just, everyone needs some time.
Yeah. So, okay. I want to bring up one of my favorite episodes that again, like you have a really good track record here with like introducing me to people that I am previously unaware of. Dan Risken. We had him on twice. We had him on twice this year. And he's kind of like our full circle guy in that the last episode we recorded when you were still with Belle and the Jan Hurden podcast was with Belle and iHeartRadio was with Dan Risken. And then we also wrapped up the year with him. We had him on about a month ago and no shortage of fun facts. Which was your favorite?
Anything he talks about as it relates to bats, I love only because he loves it so much.
I want you to tell our listeners one thing about bats that they might not know.
I mean, that is a hard one, right? To pick the one thing. What I've been kind of obsessed with lately is the fact that different bats have different smells to them. And you would think that a bat, I don't know what the average person would think a bat smells like.
Have you been lifting their little armpits up, Dan?
Well, sometimes it is in the armpits. So different bats have scent glands in different places. Sometimes it's on the neck. Sometimes it's in the wing. It's built into the wing. Sometimes it's in the shoulders. You have a lot of bats with shoulder secretions. And then there's one bat called a crested freetail bat. I've never seen it. It lives in Africa, and it's got basically like this. It can flip its hair up, so it's got like almost like a mohawk but wider, more of a Billy Idol but longer. And this thing flips up, and the males they can flick it to flick their scent onto females and with their hair. And like they're just, I mean, and I've never smelled it. And the thing about smells is you can't write a smell in a journal. You can't really share a smell. So all these bats. You got to not yet. So for now, I need to travel the world and smell these bats. And so I have like this hit list of bats that I have smelled that I love, and I can recognize them by smell. And I've got a hit list of bats that I haven't smelled yet. And so that's one thing most people don't know about bats. And whether that makes people like them more or not, I don't know. But it's one thing that I really love about them.
So
nerd.
I just want to get this straight. So you have smelled a couple of bats.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, some
And
bats.
how did that happen? What were the circumstances in which you were able to smell a bat?
Well, you do
Well,
these tours, right? Like you do travel tours.
yeah, I take people on wildlife tours,
Yeah.
and you know, you experience nature and you smell different places. But sometimes you go into a bat cave, and if there are bats in it, you can smell their droppings. But different bat caves have different smells. Like there's a bat that lives in the southern states called the Mexican free-tailed bat or Brazilian free-tailed bat, and that bat has a really strong sort of ammonia odor to its
Ooh.
droppings, so you can smell it really far away. And often you'll be walking through the countryside in Texas, and you're like, there's a cave near here. I can smell it because it's really, really strong. And it's not actually the bats that make that smell. It's the breakdown of their droppings and the way that gets broken down by these beetles that live in their droppings that secrete these smells. So, but anyway, you can recognize what bat is in the cave by the smell. And then if you go to other caves, you can smell other things. But there are these bats called yellow-shouldered bats that live in Belize. And when you catch one of those, if you catch a good healthy male, he'll have these dark orange patches on his shoulders. They're normally like a lighter yellow, and the females they're lighter yellow, but in a male it's dark and orange, and it is a scent gland. And if you're holding that bat, because I'm a biologist and I'm holding the bat for research purposes, how do you not smell the bat? I mean, you have to. It's a scent gland and it's bright orange. You got to get right in there and you got to smell what it smells like. So yeah, I've smelled a couple bats.
If you're just joining us, Dan Risken is our guest. Okay, well, moving on. That's great. That's not the fact that I expected to hear. I thought it would be, why do they sleep upside down, and things like that.
Yeah. I mean, that's interesting too. That's the thing is, like, there's no boring part, right? And the thing about bats is that nobody's indifferent about bats. Everybody like has an opinion. If a bat enters a room, it's the only thing anybody's talking about.
I like
Yeah, you
them.
love bats.
I have really good childhood memories of bats. Do you guys have childhood memories of bats? When we used to
No.
play badminton when I was a kid.
Hard no.
As soon as we
No.
started playing badminton, Dan, like badly,
they come
over
down
our
out of the
little
sky.
crappy net that mom and dad bought us at Consumers Distributing,
Oh, nice.
the bats would come out and they would follow that shuttle back
Yeah.
and forth, and they were so.
Yeah.
I mean, we'd run around screaming because you think mom would say, "Don't let it get in your hair."
Right.
I'm like, oh God.
They don't go in your hair, but they
They
do
don't go in
go
your
after
hair.
things in the air sometimes. They're curious little creatures. And
They seem
sometimes
cute. Like I think that's my only estimation I have of bats is that they seem cute and they eat a lot of bugs.
Yeah.
That's when I mostly see them, is they're flying around at night eating stuff that I don't love. So they feel handy, but I don't have a desire to smell their shoulders.
They do feel handy.
Oh,
I would-
if I was holding if I had a yellow-shouldered bat in my hand and we were in Belize together and I said, smell this, you
You
would
would.
smell it.
I would, but it's not like it's not on my bucket list.
We'll work.
I think someone recently described him as a science communicator, and I think that is his best title because he obviously has many more glamorous and educationally supported titles, but he nails being able to take a big topic and break it down into bite-sized pieces for my kind of smooth brain that usually is just addicted to reality TV. So I love that. And if you aren't subscribing to his newsletter already, please do it. It's called The Bat Signal, and all those little cool facts delivered in his exact voice and tone and sense of humor are there. So yeah, go check out Dan.
We're very lucky that we discover new people all the time on this show.
Mhm.
But some of the time we're just having friends on, which is also wonderful. We're all very connected in the media space. And I think one of your personal friends has been a fabulous guest this year, Meresha.
She's so good. I love her. If you watch her on breakfast television and you're like, oh, I really like her. Like, she seems like bubbly and fun. And she is so the real deal. That is so exactly what she is like. And she's very, very confident, but bubbly and fun. And she kind of makes everything a little more sparkly. And she used to be, when I was on Chum, she was Marilyn's vacation fill-in. And she is like that popped bottle of champagne kind of vibe at 4:30 in the morning when
That might be a lot for me.
well, when I'm not like that. And she's like there with a ring light doing makeup and just like looking incredible. And I'm like having to talk about a story where, like the latest person that Kim Kardashian's dating. And I feel like one of my eyeballs is going to fall out of my head. And she was always there just like being so great and so supportive. She's fabulous. And I loved having her on the show.
Yeah, and I mean, what she stands for and the message that she really shouts out there, whether she's doing television or podcast, she's been on my podcast before. She is somebody who reminds us to be happy with the body we have, grateful for the body we have. And again, that confidence piece we kind of talked about with Chelsea Handler, Meredith embodies that.
Years ago, I was in New York. It would have been the 90s. So we're talking, 20 plus years. But I was with a stylist and we were doing something for the David Letterman show. So you can imagine my excitement was unbelievable. And of course, I had no fashion sense. I kind of wore my jeans and my Mac jackets and my Doc Martens and had my long red hair and I darkened in my mole and I wore my red lipstick. I mean, that was my spiel, right? And I thought it was good enough. And shame on me for buying into the idea that that wasn't going to cut it. So every store we went in, they didn't have above a 10. I ended up with a Donna Karan shiny suit that I still have to this day. And it was so tight around the tummy. And I remember them pinning it kind of under the shirt because the waist was simply too tight. Not only did I have a camel toe, I had a camel two toe. I just remember my whole experience with David feeling humiliated. And I never really concentrated on singing or.
I think the tragedy of it is if you don't rise around it a little bit, then your experience, and like the one you were speaking of, it becomes about that as opposed to the thing that you're actually there to be celebrated by. I think it's really turning it around, seeing it for what it is, which is an economy, and you don't have to show up in someone else's economy. Like just because those stores aren't carrying above a size 10, you think nobody in New York is above a size 10? Give me a break.
And Meredith has been a longtime Jann music fan before coming on the show and knowing Jann sort of in more of a media personality way. And her mom went to one of Jann's concerts and they got to meet her backstage. I love that.
I got to meet your mom.
You sure did. I mean, I can't think about it too hard or I'll get emotional. Although you taught me, Jen Arden, that crying is not a bad thing. You don't have to be concerned about people when they cry. Cry is joy coming out of your body. And I love that because I that makes so much sense to me because I often get emotional when things mean something to me. And I was a bit embarrassed about that part of myself. But you came on breakfast television. You're like, no, emotions are a good thing. And tears sometimes mean the opposite of what everyone associates tears with. So it was very joyful for me to have you meet my mother. It was very special to be able to stand there and sort of, introduce my mother to you.
And you know what? I remember you and we went to see that show with Rick Mercer. That's where that was, wasn't it?
Oh, yes. We went to, you and I went to an evening show, and I believe that she and her mom went to a matinee show.
Yes.
And I think it was it on Mother's Day? It was.
Yes, because we went after our Mother's Day festivities, right?
Correct.
In the evening. That was our first date. It was really cute.
It was our first date.
But, it was really, really interesting watching Jann do kind of like what we do here on the podcast, but like on tour with someone else. I kind of felt like she was cheating on us.
I know. We were like, hey, wait.
But Rick Mercer was also a guest on the show this year. Like we should give some shout outs like Mayor Naheed Nenshi, former Mayor Naheed Nenshi.
Yeah, now provincial NDP leader.
Provincial NDP leader. That worked out well, right?
I didn't know much about him. I felt like my Alberta political game was kind of weak and I didn't know much about him or his accomplishments. And prior to his joining the show, I did some research and man, he has an impressive repertoire. And he described himself as sort of, he said he was a purple candidate. This is when he was back serving as mayor in Calgary because he wanted to be able to cross the line between I was going to say Republican, conservative, and liberal. So he's like, I'm blue and I'm red. Oh, I'm going to call myself a purple candidate. I'm like, I love that.
Yeah. And I mean, we had our fair share of American politics on the show as well.
Sadly,
I will
yes.
never forget us logging on the morning after the American election. Wah, wah, wah.
Jann.
Hello, everyone. Jann Arden, Caitlin Green, Sarah Burke. Jann Arden podcast and show. What a fucking sad day.
It was so funny. And you know what? That clip, I feel like that might have been one of our strongest clips of the year.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
Because like or hate politics, people
Yeah.
engage with it. That's the one thing I want to warn everyone. If you're saying to yourself at some point next year, as you will be doing, because he's like, Trump's not even president yet. So the
Yeah.
coverage is still going to be mild compared to what happens, I would presume, when he's in office. I just want to warn everyone that the more you engage with political content on your algorithm, the more it's going to feed you. So
Yeah.
I did notice that, like, some people will say, like, oh, I'm so sick of the US politics or whatever. And I'm like, but even by commenting this, you're engaging. Like, you have to turn it off.
Bow out.
Yeah.
Out.
Come to the land of housewives with me. It's really nice and warm and cozy over here.
Yeah, I mean, not to mention what's going on here, like Chrystia Freeland, big bombshell. Not that we're gonna get into it, but like,
No, we're not.
Nice way to end the year over there in the Canadian landscape. So
I just can't. And then Donald Trump finally weighed in on it, and I just thought, I was impressed that he even was aware of it, to be fair. Like, I didn't
Yeah.
think, I mean, the fact that makes its way down to Mar-a-Lago and then he tweets about it, good or bad, however you feel, still read as a little bit surprising to me. And do we have any year-end voice notes to sort of wrap things up for us? Because I love these voice notes so much, and I want everyone to give us more of them for 2025.
yeah, that is our 2025 wish. Although you're not going to hear Jann commenting over them this time, just know she listens to every damn episode, so she will hear them.
She's lying in bed under a weighted blanket, wishing that she could be here listening to your voices anyways. So
Hi, Jann, Caitlin, and Sarah. My name is Marie Fleury. I live near Caring Place, Ontario, the gateway to Prince Edward County. I'm a Patreon member and a longtime listener of your podcast. I look forward to it every week. On a recent Patreon bonus segment, a listener asked for suggestions for group gifts for the upcoming holidays. It reminded me of something my friends and our young adult kids did for quite a few Christmases. We called it the $3 gift exchange. The only rule, and it was a strict one, was you could not spend more than $3 plus taxes, which led to some hilarious and creative gifts. One of my favorites was someone bought a $4 bag of jujubes, then ate $1 worth before wrapping it up. Some people spent their money at the local hospital auxiliary store, where their $3 had more purchasing power. It sounds hard to only spend $3, and people always wanted to increase the amount, but we always held firm with the rule, which led to a lot of laughs. To add another layer to this, instead of drawing names from a hat, or actually we used a Santa cookie jar to see whose turn it was to select a wrapped gift or steal an already opened gift, the first year we had everyone bring a baby picture of themselves. So when a picture was selected, we had to figure out who it was, and then it was their turn. Another year, we put our favorite movie in the cookie jar. So when the movie title was selected, we had to figure out whose favorite it was. There were 13 or 14 of us, aged from late teens to early 70s. As the young adults finished school and spread out around the province, we finally retired the tradition after about 10 years. But to this day, we still laugh about our $3 gift exchange.
Hey, Jan. Hey, Sarah. Hey, Caitlin. It's Cameron here, calling from Vancouver. I'm one of your LGBTQIA listeners. And Jan, I've been listening to you since all the way back to the very first album. And I remember seeing you on Much Music back in the day and seeing your video for I Would Die For You. I've always loved you. And thank you for being the soundtrack to my life and to many other LGBT. The gay community just loves you here in Vancouver, but you already know that. Anyway, Caitlin and Sarah, God, Sarah, I'm so happy that you got that fabulous dog. He looks so sweet and lovely. And Caitlin, oh my God, your son and all the parenting advice you've been giving, because me and my partner were getting ready to hopefully have a son or a daughter sometime soon. So anyway, just wanted to wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And thanks for being the best podcast. I look forward to it every week. Thanks so much. Sending you my love from Vancouver. Mwah.
Hi, Jan and ladies. I was just taking your survey, and I apologize for how I sound, but I am recovering from a stroke on my own. I now am in rehab, so that's why I sound so weird, but it's easier than talking. But I wanted to say I just love your podcast. I love you three together. How you interview your guests, how you can bring us in as an audience, and we feel like or I feel like I'm a little bird sitting on a branch getting to listen to these great conversations and learn so much. So I really thank you. It's so wonderful. And this is the question I was answering. I will be 63, January the 8th of this coming year. All right. Rock on, ladies.
So we are going to pop onto Patreon.
Mhm.
Where Caitlin and I have some holiday stories to share from this last 2 weeks, actually. Caitlin has a rant. I love a good rant
Mhm.
about something that many households subscribe to. Maybe you can
Yeah.
guess what we're talking about. I'm trying to do what they call a radio tease right now.
It has to do with an assistant at the North Pole who frequently perches on a ledge in your home and whether or not you choose to engage with that form of holiday culture. And we're going to get into it.
She has some strong feelings about that. And then, single girl around the holidays, I got lots of feels to work through too. So we're gonna wrap that up.
I want to
over
ask you
on
for your thoughts
Patreon.
on, as someone who's in the dating world, I want to ask you for your thoughts on what happens and how do you feel about a potential partner
Mhm.
subscribing to someone on OnlyFans? Because there's a whole conversation happening right now about whether or not OnlyFans constitutes cheating. And I have thoughts, but I want yours.
Okay. All of that will be on Patreon. $5 a month. I'm gonna do this part of the Janning.
Please do.
The
Please Jan it
Janning.
up.
So for $5 a month, you get access to bonus content every week. It supports the podcast. We are not, paid by a media conglomerate any longer. We are a self-sufficient team, and it means a lot to us. We do all sorts of special stuff, like for our live events, you get first access, you get a pre-sale. For our Only Jan's merch, you get a discount. There's a promo code only for you guys in there. And what we're going to do more of, which was supposed to happen today, but again, unfortunately, Jan is sick, is, gatherings where we can invite you to stream our recording session with us.
Yeah.
And we can bring people into the audience where your voice or your video would be recorded and part of the episode. We're going to do more of that in the new year. Obviously, the first one of the new year will be what was supposed to be our holiday open house, but it's coming. And we appreciate you so much. I do sound like Jan. They say when you spend time with people, right? Like you start talking and using their mannerisms. My mom, sometimes she's like, did you just imitate Jan Arden or do you talk like that now?
No way.
Yeah. What does she always say?
Are you saying toodly do yet?
No, that has not made its way into my repertoire, but
I say gracious good day now. I really like that. I've stolen that from her.
That's what your email said this week.
That's how I greet
Gracious
everyone.
Good day. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
It kind of feels Handmaid's Tale-y to me for something.
It seems like it's a place of hark. Like hark. Yeah, I like that.
So anyway, subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Thank you so much for an amazing 2024. We are wishing our Jan better health and to start off the new year in better health. And thanks for a kick-ass 2024 and sticking with us through all the moves and shakes.
Hell yeah.
I'll leave it to you. Last word.
Toodly do. It feels wrong.
I know.